Hello, welcome to the interview here on France 24. It's been 2 months since a U.S. Senate panel, after a very long fight, released its sweeping indictment of the government's illegal detention and torture of terrorism suspects in the years following the September 11th, 2001 attacks. Now, the New York Times described this 500-page summary of the grisly techniques used by the CIA as, and this is a quote, "a portrait of depravity that is hard to comprehend and even harder to stomach." Now, my guest today is John MacArthur, frequent here on France 24. Welcome, journalist, longtime publisher of Harper's Magazine in the United States. But more pertinent to our purposes today, you're co-author of the preface to the new French edition of this so-called CIA torture report. You bring up some very interesting points. For one, you say it makes for some interesting reading. Perhaps there's some lessons, not just for Americans, but for the world beyond. We're going to get to that in a second. But I want to start with asking you the obvious question. You know, when this report came out, it was, I think, 6,000 pages, right? Condensed to 500?
6,800 or so.
I question how many journalists even really read it.
Right.
And I imagine you had some of the same hesitation. You read the report, and you had some pretty, from what you wrote in your preface, you were pleasantly surprised.
Yes, I was horrified, of course, but I approached it with real hesitation because I thought, first of all, I already know what happened. I've heard it all. You know, I've heard about all the horrible torture stories. And what do I want to read a report for that's just going to recite these horrible, there's accumulation of horror stories, and probably in a terribly dry senatorial voice. So I start reading the thing, and 100 pages into it, I say, wait a minute, I'm already 150 pages into it, and I wonder, why is this so compelling? And the reason is, there is an author. There is a principal author to this report. His name's Daniel Jones. He's an ex-FBI man, and you could accuse him, I suppose, of settling scores with the CIA or something, but this guy has a sense of irony. He's got a rhythm. He's got a style. And he's really, really explaining it almost at a literary. He approaches the literature, the level of literature at a certain point, and sprinkled throughout is this extraordinary selection of quotes, citations of where you hear the CIA people talking among themselves, where you really get a sense of you know, it's a cliche, the banality of evil, but how puffed up, how happy they are with themselves, how proud they are of themselves, and then conversely, how ridiculous they look when they say, you know, we've tortured this guy we've waterboarded this guy for the 60th time, and you know what? He doesn't know anything. He's not important.
And we're reading
Let's let him go. Let's let him go.
But and this is the thing. To me, it's amazing, and you also bring this this point up in your preface, that this report ever saw the light of day, even in this boiled-down, sanitized version, even this 500 with the redactions and all. How? There was a giant clash. Even now there is. Yeah,
I started out thinking Senator Feinstein, Dianne Feinstein, is an ordinary, run-of-the-mill senator. I ended up thinking she's a kind of giant of American constitutional history because she almost single-handedly pushed this thing out at the last second before the Senate changed hands, before the Republicans took over. But she's not only fighting the CIA, which treated this dossier as though it were civil litigation. That's what we say in the preface. The CIA behaved as if it were a corporation with no responsibility to report anything to the government.
It was worried about its image. Worried about its image.
But also, we were so arrogant. We don't have to give you anything. And then eventually they hacked into the computers of the Senate committee itself to get the copy of the Panetta report.
And the Panetta report, right? It was the internal,
which was the internal report prepared for Leon Panetta when he became director of the CIA after Obama took office, which confirms everything in the report.
So the CIA, said the same thing as the Senate.
The same thing as the Senate, and it admits to itself that the enhanced torture techniques were utterly useless. Utterly, at 100%. There's not one example in this report of a successful interrogation where they extract information they either didn't already have or that was extracted by conventional methods by the FBI or by foreign intelligence services.
And that's what I was just going to ask you. The FBI, on the contrary, as you point out, stuck to tried and true detective procedure, by the book, and they got more information.
And this is humiliating, I imagine, to the CIA, and gratifying, I guess, in some sense, to Daniel Jones and his colleagues. But after all this, I don't know where the American people stand on this, because unfortunately, thanks to Zero Dark 30 and Homeland, the TV series, people have this idea that the CIA really knows what it's doing.
It glorifies
it. It glorifies them, and you get the sense that there are a lot of thinking, reflective people in the CIA. What you get here, for the most part, is people fighting for their budget, because it's important for the CIA to maintain this enormous secret budget. People fighting to defend their reputations as great spies, great interrogators. You get an immense number of lies perpetrated, one on top of the other, to the Senate committee, to the White House even, and to the press, that are all designed to make the CIA look competent. And one way to describe this report is just a one long example of CIA incompetence.
Let me ask you.
Now, I'm not saying they didn't think sometimes they were going to get something. They may have actually convinced themselves that waterboarding, rectal feeding, making people wear diapers for 72 hours, smashing them against the wall works. They may have told themselves that. But at a certain point, they're all admitting to themselves this doesn't work.
We have the report. We have, as you said, them internally speaking to themselves, admitting all of this, and yet you still have people defending torture.
Right.
Let's go right up to the top. Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney.
Let's talk about accountability. I can't say the words Dick Cheney without saying accountability. What's happening to him?
Well, Dick Cheney's out there. He's the front man defending the program. He says, I make no excuses. We had to do this. And in the broad scheme of things, it prevented another terrorist attack.
Who's still saying that besides him?
Don't know. Besides him, because they haven't asked Condoleezza. I haven't seen Condoleezza Rice's reaction, and I haven't seen Rumsfeld's reaction. But Cheney is out there fighting the fight and saying this is all justified. And not only that, Bush knew. Bush knew more than the report says he knew. And that's one fault in the report, I have to say. If you follow the story the way it's told here, Bush is surprised in 2006 to learn about the specific methods being used. And he's offended by certain methods. And he's the one who eventually puts an end to the program, not Obama. I'm not sure I'm convinced that Bush didn't know. I imagine Cheney kept him better informed than the report tells you. He kept him informed.
To what extent do you think, given the fact we were talking about the obstruction, the delays, the pushback from the CIA against the Senate, that this report well, it's a concession, obviously, but like you said, how much is it not the full story? How much more might we learn still?
This is what's in play right now. Senator Burr, who succeeded Feinstein as chairman of the Intelligence Committee, has now formally demanded that the White House, that the executive branch, return the copies of the full report that have been sprinkled around the executive branch. Feinstein sent it to several different agencies.
That's not going to happen tomorrow, right?
I'm assuming Obama's going to say no. I'm hoping he's going to say no, in which case we can hope that there will be more leaks coming from those unpublished pages. But the problem is that Obama has kept John Brennan in power at the CIA, who was the greatest obstructionist. He fought tooth and nail to keep this thing from coming out right up to the end. Up to the end. He's still director of the CIA. And so I have doubts about Obama's authenticity. I mean, I have doubts that he's sincere about making any of this stick.
Far from Snow White in this affair. In the little time, John, that we have left, I want to shift it over to France. Obviously, last month we had the attacks here in Paris. Had some tough talk right up to the president. Hollande saying last night he wants to be tough and implacable, but at the same time irreproachable in his response. Will France be able to live up to those pledges? Will it fall into the U.S. trap?
Well, I'm hoping they don't, because what this report shows, and obviously the French are not proposing torture as a way of getting information out of potential terrorists.
Not yet.
Not yet. But what we learned from this is that the Patriot Act, when they pulled all the stops, basically, and they said, you know, you can do anything you want. They gave carte blanche to the CIA. The CIA interpreted that as, we can do anything we want, including torturing people. Nobody ever, eventually it was specified. But in the initial panic after 9/11, people said, well, basically anything goes. And liberal columnists like Jonathan Alter even wrote columns in Newsweek saying, well, you know, I have to say, the ticking time bomb scenario seems real to me. And if you need to torture somebody to get information to stop the bomb from exploding, I may be for it. And this is the mentality that developed after the Patriot Act in the initial
and gain
panic.
momentum. We have 30 seconds.
And gain momentum. So the object lesson here, the moral of the story is slow down. Don't run. Don't rush to pull the stops on the Constitution, on warrants, on all the things that slow down criminal procedure, criminal investigations. It's not only a protection for the innocent, it's a protection for the police.
Just remind our viewers before we leave, we were talking before the show, you mentioned some comments by a French official recently. Is it a prosecutor or someone?
Right. Frédéric Pechnard, a UMP guy, close to Sarkozy, is calling for warrantless wiretapping, warrantless listening into conversations. And I'm saying this is very dangerous. He's not asking for the right to torture, but what I'm saying is that this can lead to torture.
It's a slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope if you tell the intelligence services, we want you to do whatever's necessary. Because how are they going to interpret whatever's necessary?
And that is the big open question.
Right.
Unfortunately, we have to leave it there.
Right.
Whole other interview set up. John MacArthur, the publisher of Harper's Magazine, but also the co-author of the preface to the new French version, translated, of the CIA torture report, the boiled-down summary, which has a lot of lessons for Americans and the world beyond. And perhaps there's a lot more we're still yet to know, and will we ever know it? Thanks for being our guest today.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for watching the interview, and more news ahead.